What's up, guys? Welcome to another video of Wildcard Sports. In today's video, we are switching on over to the AFC, and today the AFC North. If you missed my past videos, we did the whole NFC, each division in the NFC, so check those out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's just get right into it. I'm going to give the best case scenario for the team and the worst case scenario record for the team. So starting in the AFC North with the Cleveland Browns. Let's look at their schedule here. And it's one of those things. Will they have a great defense again? Will they stay the same in that regard? Having a great defense, hopefully boost up their offense. But let's look at best case scenario here. And I like the Browns here week 1 against the Cowboys. Worst case, I would say they lose, but best case, and I do think they win. So Browns with a win here. So we'll count the wins. So one win against the Jaguars. We'll say best case it's a win there. They should win against the Giants. So start 3-0. They should beat the Raiders. Raiders have a really good defense too. That could be a very low scoring game. Best case scenario here, the Browns could start 4-0, but that's best case. So 4, I'd say they lose against the Commanders. It's still 4 wins. Lose against the Eagles. Bengals Browns division game. Browns are at home. Let's just say they get the W. 5 wins there. Beating the Ravens twice is going to be tough, but let's say they split it, best case scenario. So 6 wins. Let's say they beat the Chargers 7. I say they just lose against the Saints. So, staying healthy, all that. I know the Saints aren't that good of a team, but let's just say they still have 7 wins here. They split it with the Steelers, 8 wins. Let's say they beat the Broncos 9. Lose against the Steelers, lose against the Chiefs, lose against the Bengals on the road. Dolphins, they could beat primetime television, low scoring maybe if they have a solid defense. Let's say they get 10 wins there. And then I don't see them beating the Ravens unless the Ravens are resting all their starters by the last week of the season. So I would say the Browns have a best case scenario of getting about 10 wins this season, 10-7, which, that should get them to the playoffs, but that's best case scenario. Maybe 11 wins with a few games there, but I did say the Browns could start off 4-0 if everything goes right, everyone stays healthy, and everyone's playing well. So they could start off 4-0. They have a tougher stretch towards the end of the season there, but I like them getting at least 10 wins, best case scenario. Let's look at the worst case scenario here. Worst case scenario, they lose week 1 against the Cowboys. They lose on the road against the Jags. They beat the Giants, so that's 1 win there. They lose against the Raiders on the road. They lose against the Commanders. They lose against the Eagles. It could be rough. They could lose against the Bengals at home because, Bengals are a better team, but division game, Browns at home. Let's just give them the win there. So that's 2 wins right there. They play the Ravens. They could lose both games against the Ravens. We're looking worst case scenario here. Say they lose that. Let's just say they beat the Chargers, even though I like the Chargers this year. That's 3 wins. I said they lose against the Saints, but let's just say in this case scenario, they beat them on the road, which, is possible. So that's 4 wins. I still think they could split against the Steelers. That's 5 wins. Let's say they beat the Broncos 6. So lose against the Steelers on the road. I think lose against the Chiefs. It's still 6 wins. Lose against the Bengals. Yeah, they could lose against the Dolphins, even though Browns are at home, and then lose against the Ravens. So I see their floor, the worst case scenario for the Browns, is 6-11, right? Yeah, 6-11, worst case scenario. But Browns are one of those teams. They're very average or they're really bad. They can't get great, or if they are great, something happens week 1 in the playoffs. So, I hope the Browns do well this year. Hopefully they get a wild card spot. They're not going to win the division because the Ravens are so good. Steelers are getting better. Bengals are already good and should bounce back from last year. So let's look into the Steelers' schedule here, best and worst. Let's start with the best case scenario. They got a tough road opener here. the Falcons should get better. Cousins should be starting for the Falcons, but let's just say best case scenario, Steelers steal one on at week 1. And then they have another road game against the Broncos. They should win it though. Best case scenario, 2-0. Come back home, start 3-0, beat the Chargers. Maybe they beat the Colts on the road. They could start 4-0 as well, but I seriously doubt it. I feel like there's going to be at least 1 to 2 losses there. But let's just say best case scenario, they start 4-0. I really hope they beat the Cowboys. I'm a Cowboy hater, so let's hope they start 5-0, the Steelers, but don't really see that happening. Let's say they finally lose against the Raiders, even though that's a very winnable game for the Steelers. So that's still 5 wins. They should beat the Jets. They should beat the Steelers, so that's 7 wins. I say they lose against the Commanders. Let's say they split some with the Ravens, so that's 8 wins. Right? Are we at 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 against the Ravens. Let's say they split with the Browns, lose that one. Lose against the Bengals. Should beat the Browns here at home. And then lose against the Eagles on the road. Lose against the Ravens on the road. Probably lose against the Chiefs. And then let's say they beat the Bengals to end the season. So let's recap that as far as wins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see. 9. 10. Yeah, I have a hard time getting them past 10. Maybe 11 wins for the Steelers. I don't know. I thought I would have the Steelers doing better, but they have some really tough games. So, just like the Browns, Steelers, best case scenario, in my opinion, 10-7. I know you guys are going to disagree with me on that, but it's a tough season for the Steelers. I mean, it's a tough division. And, when you got to play the Chiefs, you got to play the Eagles, you got to play the Bengals twice, Ravens twice. That's really tough. Commanders are going to be tough. We don't know how the Jets are going to be. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers is still playing by October. But I don't know. Steelers 10 wins. That's my best case scenario for them. Maybe 11 as well. But I don't see the Steelers winning the division. All right, moving on to the Bengals. Bengals should get better. They tend to start off seasons not well, the Bengals, for some reason. They have bad starts and then pick it up. Hopefully Joe Burrow stays healthy. He should. Knock on wood, but here we go. Start off the season against the Patriots. Easy W there. Then they go to the Chiefs. That's going to be a hard one. Let's just say the Chiefs win it. But we are looking at best case scenario, but I still think Chiefs win it at home. So, 1, they beat the Commanders. Going to be a tough one. So that's 2 wins. Beat the Panthers, 3. Split. Let's say they split with the Ravens. So that's 4 wins. Beat the Giants, 5. Let's say they lose against the Browns on the road. Let's say they beat the Eagles, 6. Beat the Raiders, 7. Lose against the Ravens. Let's say they beat the Chargers, 8. Beat the Steelers, 9. Probably lose against the Cowboys there, but go Bengals. Beat the Titans, 10. Beat the Browns, 11. Beat the Broncos, 12. And maybe lose to the Steelers last game of the season. So, yeah, my best case scenario for the Bengals, 12 wins. Sure, they could do a lot better than that. But 12-5, I mean, that's still a solid season. That's a playoff spot. They should be making the playoffs, wild card at the very worst. But I feel like the Ravens win the division here. Did we skip? Oh, we skipped the Steelers' worst case scenario. My bad. Let's go back to the Steelers really quick. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that we skipped worst case scenario. So, back to the Steelers really quick. Worst case scenario, I said they were going to start off like 4-0, 5-0, but they could easily lose against the Falcons first game of the season. They could even lose against the Broncos. So they could go 0-2. Let's say they beat the Chargers at home. Let's say they beat the Steelers or beat the Colts, so that's 2 wins. They could lose against the Cowboys. Let's say they beat the Raiders, so 3 wins. Beat the Jets 4, beat the Giants 5, lose against the Commanders. Let's say they lose both to the Ravens. Lose 1 against the Browns, lose against the Bengals 6, and then beat the Browns 6, lose against the Eagles, lose against the Ravens, and then beat the Bengals end of the season. So 7 wins, worst case scenario, but I really don't see that happening for the Steelers this year. 7-10, worst case scenario, but I like that 10-7 record for them. Sorry, back to the Bengals now. Worst case scenario. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. Got to keep track of all these teams. So, looking at the worst case scenario for the Bengals, they could start the season 1-1. They could lose against some Commanders at home, but I still like the Bengals there. So I still have them 2 wins. Beat the Panthers 3. I still think they beat the Ravens at home. So 4 wins. Beat the Giants 5. Let's say they lose against the Browns, so 5. Let's say they lose against the Eagles. 5. Beat the Raiders 6. Lose against the Ravens again. Lose against the Chargers. Beat the Steelers 7. Lose against the Cowboys. Beat the Titans 8. Beat the Browns 9. Beat the Broncos 10. And then lose against the Steelers. So, yeah. I mean, worst case scenario for the Bengals, 10, which is still great. And still could get you a wild card spot. 10-7. What do you guys think about the Bengals? Let me know. All right, moving on to the Baltimore Ravens. And I think they win the division. But let's look at it. Maybe I'm calculating wrong here. Very tough one to start off the season against the Chiefs, of course. It's going to be tough. Let's go best case scenario, though. I do think it could be a coin flip game. So best case scenario, they win it. So that's 1 win. Beat the Raiders 2. Beat the Cowboys 3. Start the season 3-0. Very tough one, though, against the Bills. They should win it. They could start the season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0. Let's say they lose against the Bengals, so 5-1. Beat the Commanders, which is a tough one, 6-1. Beat the Bucs 7. Let's say they split with the Browns. Beat the Broncos 8. Beat the Bengals 9. Let's say they split with the Steelers, so that's a loss. I say they beat the Chargers 10. Let's say they beat the Eagles 11. Beat the Giants 12. Beat the Steelers 13. Let's say they lose against the Texans and then beat the Browns at the end of the season. So 14 wins and winning the division. 14 and 3? Which is a solid season. I would take that any day. I know a lot of people are like, no, they could go 15-2, 16-1, but they have very tough games. So 14-3, if you escape the season 14-3 as a Baltimore Raven fan, be very, very happy with that. That's winning the division. All you got to do is make the playoffs. That's what matters. And you could get home field advantage with that. So best case scenario. But let's look at worst case scenario really quick for the Ravens. Let's say they lose against the Chiefs week 1. Beat the Raiders. Let's say they lose against the Cowboys. So they only have 1 win so far. Let's say they lose against the Bills. Lose against the Bengals. Let's say they beat the Commanders, but they could lose that game, but they should win it. So that's 2 wins. Beat the Bucs 3. Lose against the Browns on the road. Beat the Broncos 4. They should beat the Bengals at home. 5 wins. Let's say they lose against the Steelers. Let's say they lose against the Chargers. Don't see that happening, but let's just say they do. They could lose against the Eagles, which probably won't happen. They are at home. I like them at home. Beat the Giants, 6 wins. Beat the Steelers 7. Lose against the Texans, and then beat the beat the Browns. That would be 8 wins, but I know those are my calculations, but I really, really, really do not see the Ravens getting 8 wins this season. So I would say their worst case scenario, because there's going to be some wins there for sure, but I'll give them 11 wins worst case scenario, 11-6. But what do you guys think about that? I want to hear your guys' Ravens opinions. Do you think they could do worse than that? I mean, they have a stacked team. Lamar Jackson, he has a lot to prove. He has that monkey on his back of trying to get to a Super Bowl, but I just see the Ravens winning the division, Bengals coming in second, then the Steelers, and then the Browns. Even though I think this is going to be a fun division to watch this year, a very competitive division this year. So keep your eye on the AFC North. It'll be a fun one to watch. So let me know your guys' predictions in the comments. Like this video, subscribe if you're new. Stay tuned for all the other divisions in the AFC. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.